Hey guys, what the fuck is up, you guys? My name is eManDance642, and in honor of Christopher Nolan's new movie, Oppenheimer, coming out, I'm going to be reviewing and ranking all, 12, 13 of his films. I think it's 13 now with Oppenheimer. I have been a fan of this director for years. When I started getting into movies properly, this was the dude I got into first. This was my favorite director when I was like 15 years old, and he still is one of my favorite directors. Tenet is the most Christopher Nolan movie. Confusing plot and time manipulation. This is the only Nolan movie that I didn't really get. I didn't understand it. It made no sense to me. The idea in this movie is this mirrored reality, I think, where time moves backwards. It sounds cool on paper, but the execution was a mess. It's still a alright movie. It's still a cool stealth action movie. The protagonist, just known as the protagonist, is a fine character. The mission he goes on is cool. It's a common complaint with Nolan films that a character's actions or motivations stem from women and or kids, and this movie is the biggest offender of that. Out of all of Nolan's films, it was a big problem in Inception too, but it wasn't actually that important. This movie was also just boring to me. All the dialogue was exposition, it felt stilted. There was a couple scenes I really liked. The car chase was cool, the backwards driving car was funny, but it was done really well. This is a neat little movie. It's very low budget, it's shot in black and white, and it's only an hour long, but it's an impressive movie for a directing debut. It is a very Christopher Nolan film. It's about this man known as the Young Man who follows people. He just follows people as a hobby. He finds a person, follows them for a while, then never follows them again. That rule he has is broken when he finds someone he finds interesting, then follows them for more than one day. This alone is a pretty interesting concept, but the movie takes it a step further. The guy he's following catches on to the young man, and they interact, which the young man doesn't want to happen. The other guy, Cobb, is a thief. He breaks into people's homes, then finds out about the owner from the inside. It's a really cool and interesting movie. For its limitations, it's made really well. It's not as grand as Nolan's later films, but it's seriously good. There is a very Nolan-esque twist at the end. Again, it's nothing that grand, but it works really well. This was another smaller scale movie that works really well. It's a simple premise. Two detectives go to Alaska to investigate the murder of a young girl. Al Pacino's character, Will Dormer, accidentally kills the other detective, then struggles with what he should do about it. He puts the death on the murderer of the young girl who they were pursuing. Will is a really good character. He suffers from insomnia from his actions as well as the constant daylight of Alaska. And Pacino plays that role perfectly. The murderer, Walter Finch, played by Robin Williams, is also a great character. He is not a morally right person, but the murder of the girl was not intentional. So you have these two murderers who did not mean to commit their crimes. Are they bad people or not? They both struggle with their morality. It's a well-done movie. It's nothing grand, but it's impressive. It's much more straightforward than probably every single other Nolan film, which makes sense because it's a remake of another film, but it works really well. I saw this movie in theaters, and I'm surprised I enjoyed it as much as I did. I doubt I understood the concept very well. It's a great and brutal war movie, but the main Nolan point is that there are 3 different timelines going on, and by the end, they all converge. It's a pretty cool concept. It's not crazy over the top, nor does it take away from the story being told. The story is simple compared to other Nolan films, so it's easy to keep track of what's happening. The movie doesn't go above and beyond or have a crazy twist, but it's really solid. The characters are alright, and the plot isn't anything that unique. The main story follows Tommy and Gibson over the course of a week. They don't even go into battle, they're just running from it, but it's engaging and tense the whole way through. The main character, Tommy, rarely speaks. His story is all action. The climax is neat, seeing how the three timelines connect was so cool to see. This is a very impressive movie in many ways, but it's not a movie that I'm crazy for. The concept is great, and the execution is perfect. Making it a heist movie makes it fun and interesting, and that's why I'm giving it a high score, but I did not care for the story or the characters at all. Nolan may not be the best with characters, but this is one of the only films that I think it weighs it down. I know that it is not the important part, so I could look past it. The concept is very well done. The movie is engaging from start to finish. It's simple in nature, being able to link people's dreams and go inside them, but the movie goes as far as it can with the concept. The visual effects are stunning. It's an important piece of cinema. It's an important piece of cinema. It's the most Nolan film, in a positive way, unlike Tenet, in the way that it's purely a cool concept, thought-provoking, twisty and turny, and shit characters, but it was great.
This movie was so confusing. I just could not follow it in the slightest. What a long day. I can't wait to get a good night's sleep. Honk shoo honk shoo me my messy honk shoo honk shoo me my messy honk shoo honk shoo me my messy honk shoo honk shoo me my cough sputter school cackwalk sturt fee midget traffic sputter school cackwalk sturt fee midget traffic school cackwalk sturt fee midget traffic sputter school cackwalk sturt fee midget traffic cackwalk sturt fee mid.
This film was incredible. It's most likely the best film of this year. On one hand, it's a surreal and dark movie. It's incredibly weighted, and you feel that weight. On the other hand, the movie is 3 hours of mostly dialogue and talking. Everything is important, and Nolan has his twist, but it can drag on sometimes. The dialogue can get exciting, and of course things ramp up later on. There are multiple timelines being showed simultaneously, which is pretty tame as far as Nolan time twists go. When the big moment happens and the test bomb is dropped, this movie was perfect. The anticipation was incredible. This movie has you at the edge of your seat like no other movie. When the bomb actually goes off, words cannot describe what this movie makes you feel. The movie accomplishes something I've never seen before. It's seriously a standout moment in movie history. The explosion feels so real. I don't know how they did it, but it is definitely the realest explosion I've ever seen in a film. The only other time I felt this distraught from a bomb was the poor man's Rose from Hunter x Hunter. The sound design in this scene was perfect. From the countdown right before to after the bomb goes off, it's all perfect. When the bomb explodes, all you hear is Oppenheimer's breathing as you see the flames from his creation. It's a slow and painful scene. The movie brings you back in when you hear the explosion. What's even more disturbing than the actual bomb is everybody cheering right after. It's horrifying after what they just witnessed. The rest of the movie is even more tense and stressful, but I enjoyed how it all played out, and I loved the ending. It was a somber and memorable note to leave off on. This is an important film that will be remembered for ages. Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy are some of the best superhero films ever. While The Dark Knight reigns supreme, the other two are still great. This movie reinvented Batman after the last couple of shit movies from the 90s. This movie is badass. It's action-packed, Christian Bale is awesome as Batman. It was a little rough at first, but for the most part, I didn't mind Batman's voice. The Batsuit was a little stiff at times and he moved awkwardly, but aside from some nitpicks, Batman himself is great. He is a force to be reckoned with. The movie is gritty and dark, arguably the darkest of the entire trilogy, with the villain being a psychotic lawyer, a leader of a martial arts organization, and a mob boss. This movie is the most realistic and grounded of the trilogy. I really enjoyed the Scarecrow. He was funny and over the top, but not in a in-your-face way like the Joker is. He is no Joker, of course, but he makes this movie more enjoyable. The hallucination scenes were really cool. They were chaotic and trippy. Batman Begins tells the origin of Bruce Wayne, and I think this movie does the character complete justice. From Bruce as a child falling down the well, his fear of bats, and of course his parents being murdered. It all makes the character of Bruce Wayne this tragic hero who devotes his life to the pursuit of justice. The majority of the movie shows Batman beginning. The first act shows Bruce's training in Asia as he works with Ra's al Ghul. Then later he works with Lucius Fox designing the Batsuit and Batmobile and all of that. So when we finally get to see Bruce as Batman, all that build-up completely paid off. The epic conclusion to the Dark Knight trilogy. This movie is the next step in the trilogy and the biggest and grandest movie. This movie takes place 8 years after The Dark Knight. This movie spends a lot of time focusing on Bruce, of course, and not so much the villains. Batman is the best he has ever been in this movie. He goes from being viewed as a villain and the man who murdered Harvey Dent from the end of the last film to the hero that he always has been by the end of this film. His interactions with all the other characters are great. He and Alfred have an arc together throughout the movie. He inspired a young detective, Tim Drake, or Robin. He has a relationship with the villain turned not villain, Selina Kyle, or Catwoman. Bruce is at his lowest point in this movie. He hasn't been Batman for 8 years, so he is easily defeated by Bane. But like the movie title implies, he rises. He becomes the second person ever to escape and climb out of the pit he is thrown into. Bane was a great villain. His origin was really neat. He is iconic and Tom Hardy's performance was great. He isn't as complex as the Joker, but he stole the show. Catwoman was great, and Talia al Ghul was not very good, but Bane was the driving force of the film. I don't care for his death or Talia at all, but aside from that, the climax of this film was great. Batman sacrifices himself to save Gotham, and like I said, becomes the hero Gotham needed. The end of the film is incredible, with the restaurant scene with Alfred, Gordon realizing Batman's identity, and Blake obtaining the Batcave. It's all great. It's a great and satisfying conclusion to one of the best film trilogies ever. This is another movie I rewatched. I watched a lot of sci-fi movies during the time I watched Interstellar. Movies like Gravity, The Martian, and Arrival, but this movie stood out to me. And I'm glad to say Interstellar was as great of a movie as I remember. It's a great sci-fi space travel movie with the must-have Nolan premise and twist. Cooper is a good character. Nolan tends to have wife and kids to be the point of main characters for many of the films, but it's actually done pretty well with Cooper. This movie has stakes. The concept is very unique. With time on Earth going much faster, this puts a time strain on the mission, not only for Cooper's kids, but to be there for the rest of humanity. There's a lot of great lore too. Humanity is on the brink of extinction. Many people have resorted to farming as their primary food source. NASA has been running in secret. Everything works in this movie. The sci-fi aspect is amazing. The visuals are incredible. The best out of any Nolan film in my opinion. The climax of this film is amazing. It goes completely fiction as the movie messes with time and space in a really neat way. Like I said, the twist is amazing. It's easily one of the best from Nolan. The ending is so great too. It's sad and satisfying. The movie is a modern 2001 A Space Odyssey. It's, in my opinion, a better story from start to finish. A self-fulfilling No! Out of all of Nolan's films, this movie is arguably the easiest film to watch. It doesn't have an insane concept or pretentious themes. It's one of the simplest movies, but the execution makes it way better and more interesting than Following or Insomnia. Yes, it's still a Nolan film, it's written like one and directed like one. There is a concept and a twist and everything in a Nolan film, but it's just great. It's essentially a prank war between two magicians, and it's really entertaining. And the movie being about magicians is a really cool and unique concept. The performances from Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman are really good, and David Bowie is in this movie too. In typical Nolan fashion, the twist is excellent. It's the best in all of his films. It was in plain sight the whole movie. It's such a eureka moment. The ending to the movie is amazing, and a Tom York song plays over the credits. What more could you ask for? The Prestige is such a well-made movie. There is so much detail in the movie. It's really exciting to watch. Memento is one of the best directed films of all time. The movie tells two different stories, one of them in black and white going chronologically and the other one in color, but it's backwards. Yes, most of this movie is told to us in reverse. It sounds insane, but it works so well. The movie is about a man with short-term memory loss trying to find the man who killed his wife. It's incredible what this movie accomplishes. We learn the story as the main character does due to his memory loss. As the movie goes on, we learn new things, but we don't know what to believe, and neither does Leonard. I love stories with this big puzzle that the viewer has to solve as well as the characters. This movie takes it a step further with the multiple sequences and backwards storytelling. It's a movie best watched without knowing much about it. The characters and heart of the film is not really there, but that's not the point. It's an impressive film that I think everyone needs to watch. More than any other Nolan film, this one everyone needs to watch, then watch again. This movie was always one of my favorite movies of all time. When rewatching the other two Dark Knight films, I knew they weren't going to be as good as I used to think they were, but this one I really hoped it was. And I'm happy to say this movie delivered completely upon rewatch. This movie is perfect. Batman is an excellent character, and his rivalry with the Joker is done so well. The Joker is a perfect character. It's been said millions of times, but Heath Ledger's performance was perfect. The Joker is one of the most iconic and memorable characters in film history because of his performance. The way he speaks, his mannerisms, he puts everything into this performance and it completely pays off. Every time he was on screen, he stole the show. He was so engaging and kept the viewer on edge wondering what he will do next. Harvey Dent is also a really good villain. The incorruptible hero who is going to save the city, legitimately turned villain, was done very well. It was realistic and heartbreaking. Rachel was a lot better in this movie than she was in Batman Begins. Her death was emotional and impactful, both for Bruce as well as Harvey and his descent. The climax of this movie wasn't as grand as the other two movies. The water poisoning from the first and the city-destroying bomb from the third. The possibility of the two cruise ships full of people exploding is big, but not city-destroying. The climax is much more intense from a psychological standpoint. Just the plan of two ships having to decide whether the other lives or dies is intense enough. But the Joker's grand plan is to destroy the city on an emotional level by bringing down the once incorruptible Harvey Dent. Every scene with Batman and Joker is perfect. Joker puts it best when he compares the two to an unstoppable force and an immovable object. The ending of The Dark Knight is depressing. Gordon has to lie to the entire city about the fate of Dent, and Batman has to take the fall for what happened. The Joker came closer to his goal than any other villain in the trilogy. But in the end, Batman takes the fall, and the city doesn't know the truth. So that was all the Christopher Nolan films. They're pretty good. Y'all should watch them. I don't care what the haters say. Christopher Nolan, really fucking great discography, really great movies.